we are so glad that you are here with us today. My name is Katy.
And Lincoln.
And Lincoln. And we are so glad that you can be here with us for a new Sunday school lesson. So, before we start our lesson today, we have a bag and we have some different clues. And we're going to see if you can help us figure out what you think this story will be based on the clues we have. Okay, Lincoln, do you want to take them out? Here, we'll show them our bag. Here's our bag with all our different stuff in it. Okay, Lincoln, what did you find?
My own MLB lunchbox.
A lunchbox? What do you normally put in a lunchbox?
Lunch.
Lunch.
Or
Ooh.
food.
So you think there might be lunch or a story, or this story I think might be something with a lunch or have something with food. Okay, let's think. What do you think they used to eat back when Jesus was alive, or even before Jesus was alive? They wouldn't eat the same kind of food we have today.
Maybe apples.
Oh, some fruit maybe? That's a good idea. But they might go fishing. What might they catch? Some fish maybe?
Maybe some shrimp.
Oh, that sounds good. Maybe some bread too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what else we have in this bag. What did you find? Oh, it looks like there's a couple different things. Oh.
3 rocks.
Rocks. This story, we're actually going to have 5 rocks. But right here, we have 3. Are they really big or kind of small?
This one's the biggest.
That is.
Not super big.
And the other ones, they're kind of small. And this one's really smooth, I see. Okay. A story with 5 rocks and a lunch. Okay, let's see what's next.
A sheep.
Ooh.
Well, 2 sheep.
2 sheep? Oh, I see them. Here, would you like me to move this? 2 sheep. Do they have anybody with them? Here, I'll hold them while you look. Do you think they have anybody that helps take care of them?
A shepherd.
A shepherd. Oh, a shepherd, sheep. What else do we have so far?
Lunchbox. And rocks.
Rocks. Okay, so let's go over that again. Shepherd, sheep, lunchbox, rocks. Well, let's show them our shepherd again so they can see him. Okay, there he is. There's our shepherd and sheep. What does a shepherd do?
He takes care of the sheep.
That's true. And so, back then, did they have fences like we do today?
No.
No, so they would have to make sure all of their sheep stayed together. What would happen if a sheep went away? What would the shepherd do?
Go get it.
Oh, okay, so he was really in charge of taking care of those sheep. Do you think he had to protect the sheep from anybody?
Yeah, like bears, lions.
Bears and lions? You think they would come and try to eat the sheep?
Yeah.
Oh, what do you think the shepherd would do?
Fight the animal?
Oh, so he would kind of have to be courageous, wouldn't he? Would he have to be courageous to be a shepherd? I think he would. Normally we think of a shepherd as being calm and quiet. But I think sometimes shepherds, I think they actually had to be really brave and courageous, especially if they were fighting off lions and bears. Okay, let's see what else we have. Sheep, shepherd, lunch, and rocks so far. What is next?
A toy soldier.
A soldier? Oh, I don't think that's what soldiers looked like back then. Do you think? Probably not either.
They didn't have all this stuff and sunglasses.
You're right. They had different kinds of armor, didn't they? Do you think they wore armor, though?
Yes.
I bet it was really... Do you think it was... Well, let me ask. Do you think it was heavy or light? Their armor.
Heavy.
Heavy. I bet it was really heavy. Oh, I bet they didn't have all
they didn't have, like, all those guns. They had to use swords and spears.
You're right. Javelins and spears and swords. You're right. I bet that's true. So this soldier is just like a today soldier. But this story today has a soldier in it. Okay, what is next? What do you have in there?
Bubble gum and a
slingshot.
A slingshot at the pin.
That's funny. Well, this isn't a real slingshot. But look, do you see it's a slingshot? It's a cat slingshot. So how does it work? How does a slingshot work? What do you do with it normally?
You put
something in the side of it.
Which is bubble gum.
Okay, we're using bubble gum today. And then what?
Then you pull it back.
Oh, here, put it right here in front of the camera so you can see. Okay, and then you shoot. Oh, and it goes. Well, but back then, yeah, you can go get it. Back then, Lincoln, what do you think when they had a slingshot? It wasn't made to look like a cat. It was probably made out of wood, right?
And they used rocks instead of bubble.
You're right, and I bet they used some animal parts to be able to make the slingshot part, right? And then what did they put inside of it to sling?
Like rocks
rocks. I bet so.
Different things.
Do you think that would hurt if somebody used a slingshot with a rock on someone else or on an animal? Do you think that shepherd actually used to use slingshots, maybe?
Yeah.
I think they did.
To fight off animals.
That's right, to fight off the really big animals, the lions and bears.
Or just little ones.
No, true. Something that was going to be a predator to the sheep, right? So a slingshot. Okay, so far we have a slingshot, we have a soldier, we have rocks, we have lunch, we have a shepherd, and we have sheep. Okay, I think we have one last thing. What's our last thing? Oh, 2 things. Let's show us.
My own shoe.
Oh, okay, let's hold this shoe up. Okay,
That's my shoe. My tiny shoe.
A little teeny tiny shoe. Wait a second. Look at those shoes. Here, let me show you the bottom. One is really little and one is humongous. What do you think this means? What is this in this story? This story is not about shoes. So what do you think this is?
That might be Goliath, and that could be David.
Oh, I think he told us the story. That's right. So this is going to be a giant. And this is going to be somebody who's really little. Oh, and you told us already. Who is this giant going to be in our story?
Goliath.
Goliath. And who is going to be the little guy in the story?
Little David.
David. But David wasn't that little. He was about 13 in this story. So we have a story about David.
Little compared to the giant.
You're right. He was 13. But Goliath is huge. Okay, so Lincoln gave away the story. Today's story is about David and Goliath. And this story comes from 1 Samuel chapter 17. And when we're talking about it today, we have all of these things in our story. But you know what's the most exciting part? David and Goliath. David, remember, he was the little guy. He was only 13 years old. Just like a normal kid. Goliath was almost 10 feet tall. Can you believe it? 10 feet tall.
He was about 9 feet in.
I know. And then on top of him, he wore armor that weighed almost 150 pounds. And he had a huge sword.
And a giant spear.
Okay, so we're going to start with our story. And we're going to see if we can find all these things in our story. When you hear me reading, will you hold up whenever you hear something in the story that sounds like what we're talking about? Okay, so let's see. Here we go. David and Goliath. King Saul and his army looked out from their mountain hideout. Their enemies, the Philistines, were camped on the opposite mountain. So who was there? The soldiers, right? In the valley between stood Goliath, the tallest man that Saul had ever seen. There's Goliath, our big shoe. Who will fight me? Goliath roared, waving his spear. Who can face the mighty Goliath? He shouted, lifting up his sword. Saul and his army were afraid. They could not win against the Philistines, and they could not beat Goliath. Surely they would be captured and become slaves. A beam of sunlight bounced off of Goliath's bronze helmet. His voice shook the leaves in the trees, and all the birds hid behind their branches. Send out your best warrior, Goliath ordered. Let him fight against me. If I win, you will be our slaves. If your soldier wins, we will serve you and your God. And Saul waited. No one stepped forward to take Goliath's challenge. So wait, I have to tell you something. I have to pause right here. Do you know how many days the soldiers had been waiting and hearing Goliath talk? How many days? Do you know?
Almost 40.
40 days. Goliath had come out every day for 40 days and said, I'm here. I'm ready to fight. Send me your best soldier. And what did the Israelites do?
They were afraid, so they just ran
stood there. They just waited and they were like, we'll wait till somebody else comes. But these soldiers were brave and courageous, weren't they? But that was just a little too much for them for that day. Okay, let's see what happens next. Okay, Saul felt a small tug on his sleeve. Looking down, he saw David. Do you remember who David is? A young shepherd boy. Here he is. There's David. I will do it, King Saul, David said. I will fight Goliath. You're a boy. How can you beat a gigantic man like Goliath? And so Saul turned to go. Wait, King Saul, David said. God protects me from the wolves and bears that go after my sheep. God will protect me now, too. What did David use to protect them? Do you remember? Show us. What did David use to protect his sheep? That's right, he used his slingshot. Except back then he didn't, back then he used rocks and a real slingshot, right?
This is a rock right here.
That is, okay, perfect. David reached down and picked up 5 smooth, small stones. Do we have our rocks?
I have the tiny one.
In his right hand, he carried the same sling that he used to chase away the wolves and the wild animals. Saul patted David's head and pointed down the rocky path leading to the valley. What do you think Saul is telling him? It's okay for him to go fight Goliath? Wait a second. Hold on. Did I just say that out loud? Is David going to go and try to challenge Goliath?
Yes.
This 13-year-old boy is going to try to challenge
like
a humongous, 10-foot man. Oh my goodness. Goliath laughed when he saw David. Do you see Goliath in this picture? He's huge. Oh my goodness. You are the warrior they send out against me? David slipped into his hand into his pouch and selected a stone. Do you have a stone ready? Or a bubble gum today like we have?
Bubble gum and stone.
I am not afraid of your spear and sword, Goliath, David said. God will help me. David rushed towards Goliath, swinging his sling, and the smooth stone flew through the air and hit Goliath in the forehead. Okay, so here is David in the picture, and here's Goliath. Wait a second. So David is so brave and courageous that he's going to go fight Goliath, and he did. But he said what was going to help him?
God.
God was going to help him, and actually before he went to see Goliath, he prayed, and he said, okay, God, you've got this. I know the Israelites are your chosen people, and so I know you are going to help me with this. And actually in the Bible it says, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. So he really is. He's using God's help. Okay, let's finish the story. Down, down, down Goliath fell. Down fell his sword. Down fell his spear. Down fell his mighty shield. David picked up Goliath's bronze helmet from the ground and held it high in the air. And Saul and all his soldiers rose up and shouted. David, a small shepherd boy, had beaten the mighty Goliath. Can you believe it? Show us the shepherd and show us Goliath, what we have. There's shepherd. There's David, the little tiny David. And there is a huge Goliath. And what happened? Don't do that. And what happened? Do you remember?
He died.
Well, how did he die, though? What did David do?
The stone hit him in the face.
The stone hit him in the forehead, and down he fell. It says, when the Philistines saw that Goliath had fallen, they were afraid and ran away. Trusting in God gave David the courage when he needed it most. That's quite a story. So if I was going to describe David, I would say he was brave. What else would you say? Courageous. He had a lot of confidence. And he really was faithful. He believed God would help him because he knew the Israelites were a chosen people. And he said, you know what? I know these other soldiers. They need to call upon God and say, I want his help. And that's what he did. So let's think. I have an activity you can work on today to help you remember this story and to be brave and courageous. So in the story, what did David use besides his faith in God to help defeat Goliath? What did he do?
Rock.
He used rocks. And so what we have here is we have a painted rock. And so Lincoln painted this a while back. And so that's one thing that you can do at your house. Go find a rock. Paint it. We did ours outside on newspaper just to make sure it stayed clean. And you can paint it, and that can be a reminder to you to always think that God is always with you.
And you can also write something on it.
You can write something on it. What's something you could write on your rock if you're trying to remember about being brave and courageous like David?
You could write, God loves me.
Oh, that's
or
perfect.
You could write something about, like, David.
That's right. You could write, be brave and courageous. Or God is always with me. Or something like that, right? So that's a craft you can work on today. Or whenever you feel like you have a chance to do it. So you can remember the same lesson that we learned today from David. That with God's help and with God's love, we can always be as brave and courageous as possible. Okay, will you read a prayer with me, Link?
Sure.
And then we'll be done. Are you ready? Okay, let's start here. You ready? Powerful God, thank you for the story of David defeating Goliath. Help me to have confidence and faith in you alone, and remind me that you are always with me. Amen. Thank you for joining us today. Remember, our story was David and Goliath. Be brave, be courageous, and have confidence. And always remember, God is always, always with you. Anything else?
No.
No. Have a good day.
Have a good
Bye. Bye.